All right, guys, welcome back. So I'm once again joined by Max Cooper, the Dakota's Tour player and my assistant. Now, today we are going to talk about some feel versus real with what is happening in your arms and your hands up to the top, what wrist angles you're creating, and how that can help the average player. So when we set up, what are you trying to feel out of your arms in terms of how they're hanging down from your chest?
So at setup, we've talked about always just wanting everything to hang down no matter
Correct.
what. So I like to feel like I start everything here and then just drop everything down. And that'll get my arms and everything and my balance points lined up.
So when you look at Max, that works because Max is a player who is really keen to be taller. He gets his curvature down to the golf ball by rounding out his thoracic spine. You don't see a whole lot of tilt in his pelvis like you do in some other players. If you get that tilt in the pelvis, it gets really difficult to just feel the arms hanging down. But you are spot on there. When Max is playing well, his setup is in a position where the arms are just hanging out of the sockets. Everything's in front of him. There's no reach. It doesn't get too close. When you're playing poorly, one of the things we've always noticed is that the hands get too tight to the body, right? So that throws everything off. Now, after you set up to the golf ball and you start your backswing, okay? Now, we know you're chest driven in the backswing, but
Yes.
What do you feel the arms are doing? And do you feel anything specifically out of the wrists occurring in early transition in the backswing?
So when I'm taking it back, obviously I like to feel kind of everything, keep it wide and keep everything connected.
Sure.
And then I'll get some sort of radial, this is called radial hinge, where you bend it up, and this would be ulnar hinge when you release it. So radial, get some radial, and then at the top, I just kind of feel like everything, I just hold that, because then in transition, I'll eventually release that.
Sure. So when you're moving up to the top, I think going back to P2, you feel everything's pretty quiet. Correct? That's chest driven. Now from here, you feel the wrist cocking up, right?
Yes.
So when we talk about radial deviation, that's just wrist cock there. When do you feel lift out of your arms in that movement there?
Probably at between P2 and P3 is when I'll start getting everything going up.
Lifting up?
Yeah.
So I notice a lot of players when I'm doing my golf schools around the world start lifting early in their backswing. I think that is a massive problem that I run into. If a player starts lifting, a lot of times they're going to lift their lead arm out, start rolling the club behind them, and get themselves in a lot of trouble. We want the hands moving deep. We want depth, right? But we want it to happen naturally out of the chest turning. So if we get that lift too early, that generally puts us in a position where we're gonna start rolling. So Max talking about feeling that lift later in the backswing is an absolutely critical movement out of the arms. Don't do it early. Now, when you get to the top of your backswing, what are you feeling in terms of your hands? Now, I know you talked earlier about how you like width early on. Are you trying to hold that up to the top?
Yeah, so keeping width in the backswing is very important. Like, I have a tendency to get it either too far behind me or I don't get enough at all, and that causes a lot of problems. And so I always feel like everything stays pushed back and I'm still keeping that radial deviation in my in the wrist, and that's all I'm really feeling. It's pretty simple.
So now I think once we start looking at the wrists in your transition to the golf ball, that's where things get really interesting, right? So you go up to the top, and we know when you get to the top, your wrist is fairly flat at the top of your backswing.
Yeah.
Now, you have a very neutral grip, okay? You were never put in there strong, you were never put in there weak. Neutral is pretty much your baseline, okay? There's been times when you've tried to hit big draw patterns where you've gone slightly stronger, but it's generally neutral. What do you feel out of those wrists in your transition? There's two key movements here that you have.
So first one is I add a little bit of flexion, and the second one is I feel like I release the shaft behind me to help shallow it out.
Okay, so you're moving into ulnar here.
Yes.
Okay, with flexion. Now that is a key movement for Max. If he doesn't get this position out of his lead wrist here, in that transition, the shaft will get narrow and steep. When he does this, everything gets shallow behind him. But we also notice that the club face gets really controlled. It's an awesome position for Max to be in. When it's controlled, there's not a lot of timing going on. So as you're moving from that position down to the golf ball, What are you feeling out of your arms as you approach impact?
So I feel like everything stays close to my body with my arms, and I keep holding that position the entire way through, all the way until I get to impact, and then after impact, I kind of just let everything release and go.
Okay, so the feel is he's releasing. Now, my buddy George Gankis sat there and does the no-throw drills all the time. We did that a lot with Max early on, where he felt his body rotate to hit a golf ball. But there is throw. Now, if you look at him, his arms start releasing away from his body just before the strike. But the feel that he has is that everything is holding post-impact. I talk a lot of times about where your release is going. If you are an early releaser, you're throwing that club head hard down to the ground. If you are a late releaser, you can throw it towards your target. So I think Max would definitely qualify as one of those players who's not getting a hard release down early, but instead getting that release out in front of him. Is there anything else you feel post-impact up to the top that would be interesting when you get there?
I feel like after, you've always told me after the ball is gone, nothing really matters because you can't control it once the club's up here. Like the ball's going to react already how it's done. So there's not really anything interesting that I can think of. Yeah.
So when we look at the finish position, right, this is interesting. Now, Max has a more round swing, so his finish is more around him. Now, I've always been a big believer that there's no sense in trying to practice a finish position. What's going to happen is going to happen based on your movement pattern. But if a player is more vertical, they're generally going to have higher hands. If they are more rounded, the hands are going to go more around them. Max is a player where the hands go more around him. It's an excellent movement. And I think that's pretty fascinating, what you're feeling out of your wrist versus what you're really doing there. It's pretty much on point with the feel versus the real. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next week. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. I come out with new content every Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. Thanks a lot, you guys.